Okay, raise your hand. Let's be honest. How many of y'all have been on a podcast or had a podcast that did absolutely nothing? And I do mean nothing for your business. Don't be shy. Let me know. We're going to be talking about podcasts and how to make podcasts actually work for you, for your business. Hey everybody, I am Haley Gray and I am the founder of the Women's Entrepreneur Network and the owner of this channel. And I have done podcasts that have done absolutely nothing for my business. And I've been on lots of podcasts that also did nothing for their business owners. And I've also been on podcasts and done podcasts that produced a ton of clients and a ton of visibility and helped clients build their platforms. The difference was not in what headphones you have, what microphone you have, what camera you have, the quality of your video, or any of that stuff. Those things are nice to have. But what it boils down to at the end of the day is somebody who has built some pretty large audiences is strategy and follow-up. And here's the thing, this is where most business owners really, truly struggle with their podcast strategies and why their podcast doesn't generate any clients whatsoever. So what do you do instead? What do you do that's different? How do you leverage a podcast that you have gone to the trouble of creating? Now, one of the things I want you to do is go back to Stephen Covey and begin with the end in mind. See, as a strategist, I lean in heavily to strategy and pre-planning as much as possible in terms of calendars, content, all of the things. And I generally get better results by doing that. It's not that I can't fill in and do other things in the meantime, but what I've learned is that by having a strong strategy, and we're going to be talking about that here in just a second, with a podcast, you are going to do better. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are going to tell you all the tech pieces you need. And being a software engineer and a techie myself, I am one of those people who is inclined to use lots of tech pieces. But there's lots of people out there that can tell you about the tech. We're not going to be talking just about the tech. We're going to be talking about the strategy and the implementation of the strategy and why you should hire me to help you blow that podcast right out of the water. See, I believe that a podcast can either be a monumental waste of your time, and I do mean monumental, or it can be a keystone in your business marketing. Which of the two will yours be? Well, you can determine that by knowing exactly what you want out of your podcast. First and foremost, begin with the end in mind. Determine what your call to action and what your end goal is for your podcast. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, the reality for a lot of business owners is that they do a podcast or a blog or a lot of things because they heard that they should do it in their business, should do it. Somebody said, some guru somewhere said, blah, blah, blah. Wah, 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 wah. If I only had $1 for all of the I should haves, then I would be a very wealthy person. The reality is that they don't know anything about your particular business and your particular business objectives and what you are trying to do in your business. They are not giving you specific business advice. I am not able to give you specific business advice right here on a YouTube video because I don't know your exact business. So, what do? Sit down and think really hard. Think about what you want your podcast to achieve for you. Is it clients? Is it name? Is it recognition? Is it platform? Is it monetization of a platform? What is it going to be? A lot of people think that, the best way that they're going to get their podcast out there is a ton of advertisers or whatever. And I would generally argue that maybe, depending on the platform that you market it on, it could yield some revenue that way. But for a lot of people, truly going after advertisers before you have built your platform is a monumental waste of time, once again. So here's what you do instead. Determine what your chief and overarching call to action is out of your podcast in general, and format it and generate a clear, consistent format for every single podcast you do, and a very clear, consistent promotion type and schedule for every single podcast you do. Because here's the thing, building a marketing framework and an operational framework around your podcast is going to help you grow it. This is something I work on with my clients. So you can take a podcast, you can have it transcribed, or you can run it through transcription software, depending on how clear you speak, depending on accents, depending on software, right? You can turn that into a multitude of blog posts. You can turn it into a multitude of short snippet videos. There's a ton of different softwares out there that will help you identify, juicy moments in your videos that will allow you to generate short snippet videos. Use those short snippet videos, lead those to the longer videos. The longer videos go to a call to action of whatever your call to action is. Maybe it's book a call with you, book a demo, book something. The next thing you're going to do is pull quotes out of the transcription. You're going to pull out written quotes. There's a ton of different pieces of software to do this. Are you looking at making some investments in your software? Yes, you probably are, because doing this stuff manually absolutely sucks. So turn it all into snippets, turn it into quotes, and then turn it into graphics. Here's where the magic starts to happen. Post the graphics on Pinterest. For every single quote you have, generate 10 to 20 different graphics for that quote. Test them on a variety of different Pinterest groups and boards and see which ones perform well. Take the ones that perform well and use those as LinkedIn posts, and use them as posts on Twitter, use them as posts on Facebook, use them as posts on Instagram. Multiply every single podcast that you do and promote it multiple times. Promote it even once it's done. Promote it for years after it's been released. So you have this entire library, okay? So you are continuing to promote your old content month after month, year after year. Take the podcasts that do the best and drive ads to those particular podcasts that do the best. And let me just tell you, you're going to have 10% of your podcasts that are going to get the most traction, that are going to get the most traffic. Take the ones that are getting the most traffic and drive ads to those so that people can find you, because the more people that find you, the better. Keep generating content consistently. So before you release your podcast, make sure that you have several months of content in the hopper. Are you releasing a podcast once a week? Are you releasing a podcast once a month? What are you doing? Get that content into the hopper, chop it up, turn it into blog posts, get those blog posts ready to post, right? Have transcription, have audio, have it all ready to release on a schedule. Yes, you're probably going to have to hire a virtual assistant to do all of the chopping, blopping, turning things into pieces, and getting it all released on a schedule. As you find the pieces of content that do the best, continue to promote those. Now, here's an additional tip for you. For every single guest that you have on your podcast, you need to be giving them a checklist of what they need to do in order to promote. Here is how we promote our podcast. Here is your graphic for promotion. Here you go. We're going to release this at this time and this date, and we are going to tag you. We ask that you share this on your LinkedIn. We ask that you repin this on Pinterest. We ask that you do X, Y, or Z. The more that you can educate and email and train your podcast guests to help you promote, the better. When somebody is a podcast guest for you, turn around and take a selfie and click and post that on social media. You can generate a ton of different content around recording the podcast and sneak peeks and amazing guests. Tell the story of before, tell the story of recording it, tell stories about looking for guests. Make sure that people have actually listened to your podcast before you book them as guests. Go after relatively high profile guests, but guests that are not necessarily so high profile that they are not themselves going to promote your podcast. You want people who are going to promote your podcast having been on it, because this is a multi-part experience. You want somebody who is going to promote having been a guest on your podcast and who is going to re-promote it. You want to train somebody how to create a YouTube playlist and add your podcast to their YouTube playlist. You want to encourage somebody to have your logo placed onto their website as seen on your podcast. And here's the graphic, and here's this, and here's the link to the episode. Make sure that your guests have all of this information. Create a checklist, create an SOP for those guests. The easier you make it for your guests to promote, the more you remind them to promote, the more you create competitions for them to promote, the better your podcast is going to do. Now, a podcast that doesn't get heard by anybody is not going to have any reach. You may also find that you want to publish the snippets of the audios on platforms like TikTok. You want to post YouTube shorts. You may want to post the entire podcast on YouTube itself. You may want to post the entire podcast on Facebook. You can monetize the podcast on those platforms and get paid for the number of hours that people listen to you. The requirements keep changing and there's different bonuses all the time, but the more content you post, the more video, the more audio, the more bits and pieces of the content that you post across platforms that meets their requirements for monetization, the more income that you generate from it. So you start to generate income and clients. Now, you want to make sure every single time that you release a podcast that you're telling people how to get to the podcast, and you're telling people what the next step is for the podcast. Make it super easy for people to follow you, to follow along, to get the information that they are looking for. Don't hide your information. Don't leave it in a transcript. Don't hide your light under a bush. So, first step is to make sure that you have a strategy. Begin with the end in mind. Chop the content up, reuse it 5,000 different ways. Give the resources to your guests and encourage and train your guests to promote for you. And then set up a competition amongst your guests so that you can see who is promoting the most. And I'm a believer in choosing people that are higher profile, but not so high profile that they will not promote you themselves. Make sure that you are choosing guests that understand that the game about being a podcast guest is in the promotion. I'm Haley Gray, and I am the founder of the 76,000 strong Women's Entrepreneur Network. I have helped tens of thousands of business owners put hundreds of millions of dollars into their bottom lines. And I can help you grow your business. Book a call with me today and see how we can provide you some strategy and help you grow your business, and maybe even hire me to help you grow your podcast, or one of these other 11 methods that we're talking about, helping you bring in massive monetization into your business. Let's talk.